RedZoneSports.bet, the British home of American sports.
Hello and welcome to the SportsHeads. I'm Simon Millen from Lindy's Sports Magazines. Back in July 2017, Kevin Cadle called me up and said, let's talk some football. He developed a program called the SportsHeads and he wanted to take it to the next level. That was his dream. But tragically, as you know, Kevin passed away suddenly at the age of 62 back in October, and we were left devastated and heartbroken. But we decided to carry on Kevin's legacy. We wanted to take the SportsHeads to the next level. But it's thanks to you and thousands like you who've given the show the momentum it needs to carry on and take it to the next level. So we're pleased to announce that Andre Dixon, the co-founder of the SportsHeads, has reached an agreement with Sky's free-to-air channel, Frontrunner, which can be found on channel 468. The SportsHeads will have multiple programs on there. The details are still being finalised, but we hope to have those with you shortly. We'll put those on social media and also on www.thesportsheads.com, which is our new website. That's for the future, but the present is what you're here for, and that can only be Super Bowl 52. I'm delighted to say that we're joined in the studio to break down Super Bowl 52, where the top seeds in the AFC and the NFC are meeting in Minneapolis. Yes, the reigning champion New England Patriots are taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. And two great guests, you know them both, Mike Carlson of the BBC, Matt Phillips of 40yardscouting.com are here to break down the game.
You know, Kevin said he wanted to take it to the next level and the next level and the next level, but then when he called me up and said, hey, do you want to come do the show, he took it down one level.
Just not true
at all. I was always pleased with that. Yeah.
Not true at all. Great to have you here, chaps. Let's basically take a look at the Super Bowl records of each of these teams, first of all. Philadelphia, everyone says they haven't won any Super Bowls. Well, that's true to a degree, but they have had 3 national titles, the last of those in 1960.
Yeah, the 1961 I remember, actually, and all of my friends in Philadelphia are reminding me of it time after time. But it was, you know, Norm Van Brocklin at quarterback and Chuck Bednarik playing center and linebacker. That was the season Bednarik famously knocked Frank Gifford out of football for a year and a half. And in that championship game, there's a famous moment right at the end of the game. Jim Taylor, the fullback for the Packers, catches a pass out of the backfield, breaks a couple of tackles, going in for, you know, it could be a score, and Bednarik and a couple of other guys bring him down and then sit on him. And literally until the clock goes out, and then Bednarik gets up, he goes, you can get up now, Jim, the game's over.
You weren't there for the Mud Bowl in 1949 though, were you?
No, that's famous too, because the players had to literally dig themselves out of a huge snowfall and get themselves to the to the stadium. I'm trying to remember which. I think it was Steve Van Buren who was their star. Literally, like walked, got a bus, walked again, got the over whatever they called it, and it's like, you know, it took him like 4 changes in order to get to the stadium on time. There's great pictures of it. You can see in the, you know, if you go online, the guys freezing and, you know, the field's all snow. You can't tell who the players are.
Yeah,
that was
you've become the historian today. I've noticed a little bow tie. I think that's
it's very professorial.
It is,
you know, I think that's kind of
a little bit of
my role in this kind of company.
Of course, we've got the Cardinals up there, and they were actually the Chicago Cardinals, 47, 48.
That's right. And then the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, you know, and then the Arizona Cardinals. So at first they were the Phoenix Cardinals, which was, and then someone noticed that was 2 birds, you know, a phoenix and a cardinal, so they changed it to Arizona.
Three losses, 2 in the Super Bowl era. They had the Raiders and the Patriots as well. So
yeah, and they've had a tougher time in that Super Bowl era, and the loss to the Patriots was a typical Patriots win. You know, a very close one, hard fought. Outcoached in the end. Andy Reid, this is a large part of where his reputation as a bad clock manager comes from, and of course the famous thing with Donovan McNabb, supposedly throwing up in the huddle, and taking things very casually when they needed to be playing hurry up.
Exactly. So they've had 2 losses in the Super Bowl era. Let's have a look at New England's Super Bowl record. They've had 5 victories and 4 losses, but Belichick and Brady, 5-2 in Super Bowls.
Yeah, I was at the Bears one. That was the first Super Bowl I ever saw,
85.
and it wasn't a pleasant experience.
I thought it was great.
Yeah, the funniest thing that happened was George Wendt, the guy from Cheers, who played Norm in Cheers,
Yep.
was kind of walking through the area where we were sitting, and all the New England fans around there were all going, "Nom, nom." And George Wendt opened his jacket, and he had a Walter Payton jersey on. Of course, he's from Chicago and Second City. That was an amazing game. You know, the ball. I remember the pass from Tony Eason bounces off of Stanley Morgan's chest. Would have made it 10-7 game. It would have been Eason's first completion of the game, and it could have been a different game. But
of course, everyone remembers that for Walter Payton.
Walter Payton game. I mean, and the fridge getting into, you know, but they were completely outclassed. But and of course, they were the first team to go through the wild card process and win 3 games on the road to get to the Super Bowl. So that was a pretty good achievement.
Massive underdogs, and unfortunately it panned out.
The Packers game came after Bill Parcells announced he was leaving, you know, and therefore was a lame duck coach in the Super Bowl. So that's another one. Belichick and Brady are 5-2.
Yep.
Both losses to the Giants.
Yeah. But the interesting thing, I mean, all their 5 wins, 19 points combined.
Oh yeah, and like I said, a typical Patriots Super Bowl is a close game, and the losses to the Giants were close games too. That hinged, you know, on you can take one play out of each game, and the result changes over. You know, completely.
I think it's fair to say, Matt, that you know a lot of people in this country certainly are suffering with Patriots fatigue. You think, oh, the Patriots are there again. You know, it's another year. But when you look at their Super Bowls, they've all been really close, really interesting, all bar the 85 game. That it's great that they actually are there, because you know you're guaranteed excitement.
Yeah, I think whether or not you're actually a Patriots fan or not, you have to admire them. I mean, it's sporting greatness, and it reminds me very much. I hate bringing football into it, but it reminds me very much the similar feeling when Alex Ferguson was at Manchester United. It was very much, it was the coaching that won the day, and they found ways to win. And the same with Bill Belichick.
Coaching in a huge budget for players.
Of course, that's a little bit different.
So I'd say there's a legacy in that. When you're a little bit younger than me, I remember it when I was at school. Everyone was a Liverpool fan.
Yeah,
you know, and
that's right,
because Liverpool kept winning things in the 70s and 80s, and even now I'm sort of thinking, oh, not Liverpool again. You know, and it's been sort of like 20 odd years since they've won anything.
I think the closeness of the game speaks a lot to the idea that they are a well-coached team that wins games by playing smartly and playing, and playing not by talent overwhelming you. When you think of like the Ravens destroying the Broncos in New York City a couple of years ago, and when I look at and I've done this a number of times this season. When I look at them personnel-wise and just take it player by player down the roster, and I'm amazed that more people haven't noted this. Philadelphia's got more talent in their starting 22 than the Patriots do, player for player. Now, and Jacksonville did too. I thought. But the question is, how do you use that talent? Get the best
two
out
keys.
of
We
it.
keep coming back to the 2 keys, don't we? It's Brady and Belichick.
And it's amazing. It's an amazing model, isn't it? As you say, I mean, I'm the same. You look at even when it comes to, me focusing on the draft and in college. You've got they seem to pick up guys like Dietrich Wise, Flowers, who I didn't really particularly like that much at college. They're okay, but they can pick guys up that other teams will kind of overlook, and because they're looking for a specific need, they want a specific character, specific role that they play, and they then draft knowing exactly what they need for that position. I think a lot of teams lose that.
It's a good point, and they're not afraid to move on, often because they're not investing huge, 4th round picks, 3rd round picks. What a lot of people haven't even mentioned or noticed this year is their 2 top picks, who were both only in the 3rd round, both missed the whole season. Derek Rivers, the linebacker I liked a lot, and Tony Garcia, the offensive tackle, who they could have used this year too. But they, what if they felt James Harrison? Any team in the league could have signed him ahead of the Patriots.
They did exactly the same.
Signed off the.
They did exactly the same with LeGarrette Brown. Talented players would not fit any.
The other Flowers from Cincinnati, a trade for like a seventh round pick. Guy came off Lee came off the Buffalo practice squad. Guy came off the Raven. You know,
They picked up a lot of Buffalo players actually.
Yeah, and there are guys who the teams didn't see the value in, or didn't see how they could use them and get the most out of them. And this goes way back to their first Super Bowl.
Comes back to
guys like
coaching
Roman
again,
Pfeiffer and Mike Vrabel, and that they picked up on.
It comes back to coaching. Yeah,
I think it's amazing,
Vrabel had a slow start, didn't he? Until he's gone to New England, and then everything took off.
Yeah.
It was amazing in the copycat league that a lot of the Patriots have always been the best, as I say, having that requirement, what we're looking for in this position, and they find the guy that matches it, such as James Harrison. And you've got a copycat league like this, but no one else seems to have taken. And it wasn't so long ago, with the 2 New York Giants defeats in the Super Bowl, that commentators were saying, okay, they found a blueprint to beat the Patriots. And what's happened since then? No one else has been able to find the same thing.
They've come close.
Yeah,
that's
right.
That's the and the interesting part about this game, again, something that hasn't been talked about a whole lot, is you do have the 2 players, Blunt and Long, Chris Long, who could join that club of 5 who have Super Bowl rings from 2 different teams in successive years.
Exactly.
But you also have a number of other guys who have played for the other teams. You've got Grugier Hill, who's like a special teams guy linebacker, who the Patriots drafted and didn't have a spot for, and Philadelphia picked him up. But you've got Dion Lewis, who was with the Eagles, and after injuries, they let him go. Chung left the Patriots when his contract was up, signed with the Eagles because his college coach was there. 1 year, they cut him. Back in New England, he's playing. He's playing really well again. And Eric Rowe, the cornerback, was a trade with Philadelphia. So it's an interesting situation because I think the Eagles, Howie Roseman, the general manager, has done a really good job of, like the Patriots in a sense, picking up guys, low budget guys that fit a specific purpose. Jim Schwartz, the defensive coordinator, started under Belichick as a scout in Cleveland. So he kind of understands the importance of your GM and you being on the same page as to the kind of players you want, the specific qualities that they have. And I think Doug Peterson has done an excellent job of coaching the team and using that talent. And we saw that with Nick Foles. What Nick Foles was doing in the playoffs, and they only got 15 points against Atlanta, but Atlanta's a good, pretty good defense, and they blew out Minnesota. They're using a lot of the stuff Chip Kelly had put in when Nick Foles had his good year under Chip Kelly, which is another reason why I can't understand people saying, well, it's Nick Foles against Tom Brady. Well, Nick Foles isn't as bad as people are saying.
No. Well, the Eagles went 7-9 last year, and you've made a good point off air about Doug Peterson was on the hot seat.
Yes, he was. I remember reading an article just days before the first game, looking at guys on the hot seat. I mean, we should take probably some of the articles with a pinch of salt, but the pressure was there, and the Eagles fans there's some mumblings of that. But going back to Doug Peterson, when he was with the Chiefs, when he went to the Eagles, it took a long time for the Chiefs to overcome that loss. I don't think people really realised the chemistry he had with Alex Smith. And that took a while to bridge, and you saw that when he then went to the Eagles and the job he's done with Carson Wentz, obviously now with Foles. And the thing with Foles, the thing I've always had against him was that, yes, he could throw a pretty long, deep pass, but in the intermediate areas of the field, he wasn't quite so accurate.
He'd had the stabilisers put on him a little bit, but I think it's an issue to start with. But the good thing about about Foles, he's an intelligent guy.
He is,
and that's why they've allowed him, I'll talk a little bit about it later, the read pass option. I think it's an absolute key in this game. We'll talk about it a little bit later. Let's just have a look at the Philadelphia Eagles defense against the New England Patriots offense. The points conceded.
Interesting thing, points conceded and points scored.
Yeah.
You know what the difference is between the Eagles and the Patriots? If you total them up, 1 point.
Yeah. It's a really fascinating clash, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a real fascinating clash. The rushing yards is obviously the interesting point from New England's perspective of their offense.
Yeah, and you talked about making time for Nick Foles.
Yep.
That's going to come from the rushing.
Yes.
That's why the rush pass option works for them, and that's what buys him the time because he's not good under pressure.
Exactly.
That's his kind of weak point.
I mean, Jay Ajayi, LeGarrette Blount, basically, they've both got revenge on their mind, possibly.
Something proves.
Exactly. But Foles, the repass option against the Patriots defense, for me, is actually key because the Patriots actually allowed 5.6 yards per read pass option. Now that's quite a big figure. That's throughout the season, and that to me is the key.
And they concentrated.
Why is that? Is it because the linebackers don't move laterally, or is that
the Patriots play most of the time in either a 4-2 or 3-3, often with the same people. It's just a question of whether the end is down or stands up, and 5 defensive backs. That's their base formation. They don't actually, they start in what they call heavy nickel with 3 safeties and 2 corners, and that makes them a little vulnerable to the run, and they have to adjust to what the teams are doing. We saw Jacksonville kill them to the outside. The reason they were killing them to the outside was those 2 linebackers were getting trapped, and the safeties weren't getting out to cover. That was Chung on a couple of plays. But they adjusted it at halftime,
and partly because Jacksonville played soft.
They became very predictable in the second half, which played in, and I don't think the Eagles will become predictable.
But I think
that's one of Doug Peterson's real strengths.
But I think that the intelligence comes into that as far as Foles goes. He like you say, he's got a pretty deep pass, but he's actually a really bright guy, and he can recognise things a lot quicker than people are giving him credit for.
Yeah, I think he just needs that a bit of confidence at times. He was doing it at Arizona State as well. He was the same guy. He could take on things pretty quickly, although that was a fairly simplified offense. But he showed that ability, that intelligence in college, and he's a pretty good quarterback as far as I'm concerned. He gets unfairly treated.
Well, I think that's true.
What do you guys think about the key matchups? I mean, what are the key matchups?
I mean, I think the first one is count the number of guys New England has in the box, and see if it's 5, do they run? If it's 6, do they run? If it's will the Eagles actually run, or will they just pretend to in order to set up the run pass option? And I think they will run, until New England show they can stop it, and by which time maybe they'll be able to throw a bit more, because I don't think they'll break big plays on New England like they did against Minnesota. The thing with the Minnesota game was once they got the 2 turnovers and the points, and they hit the big passes, it put Minnesota into an offense that they weren't comfortable with. And New England, I don't think will wind up in that same situation. For me, the matchups on both teams, the key one offensively is tight ends. Everybody knows Gronk, right? Gronk's going to. How do you cover him? Who are you going to put on him? Is it going to be a quick linebacker? Is it going to be a safety?
But people are forgetting Zach Ertz,
I suspect Jenkins may see a lot of Gronk or vice versa. But the Eagles have Zach Ertz, who's a problem. He's a good tight end and very mobile. But they also have Selleck and Burton, who can both catch the ball. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the Eagles come out in a lot of heavy formations and then move those guys downfield and see see what happens, see where the mismatch is. Because again, if you watch the Patriots against the Jags, and the Jags are a good defense. But they came out and they motioned formation, they changed formation until Brady could see who's got the mismatch on a linebacker. And even if it's a quick linebacker like Telvin Smith, who can cover, or Miles Jack, he was going to go to that mismatch as often as possible. And they'll try to do the same thing with Philadelphia. And they're the best team in the league at doing that, at using formation to discuss, and because Brady's such a smart quarterback, he sees that. He sees where they're going to go and what's going to happen.
I think it's guaranteed we're going to see that again pretty early. I mean, we saw Telvin Smith was, overmatched 3 times in the first quarter, I think it was, in coverage with his back to the play, which is not his strength. So I think, I'm a massive fan of the New England offensive line. I just think that the way they brought those guys together, and they're always so well coached, aren't they?
Yeah.
And it's, to me,
they can't beat anybody man for man. It's amazing.
Yeah, and they're such a sort of finesse. I love watching their finesse when they're playing against other teams, because if you think player for player, they wouldn't have the success they do, and to give Tom Brady the time. But we're looking at, can they get any kind of push, as you say, 1-to-1 against Philadelphia?
That's going to be that'll be a hard part for them. And they're never traditionally they're not very good at that unless they've got a LeGarrette Blount.
I mean, they're great in pass protection, aren't they?
Yeah, but they did a great job against Jacksonville. Solder shut Ngakoue out completely, and the interior guys weren't bothered by Calais Campbell. And Darius was the only guy who got the big rush
up the middle
because he's such a beast. pushing forward. But on the other side of the ball, I think the Eagles' offensive line might be the best in the league this year, even after Jason Peters left, and because Big V,
Go on, you can say his
Vitae,
name.
Hallie Vitae, I won't even say his full name, actually did pretty well. I would expect New England to attack him, but they're a great run blocking line, and when you're a team that plays a lot of play action, you don't need them to be pocket passing protecting line, because your pass protection comes on the run fake.
Right.
And if everybody's flowing and you're pushing everybody that way, and Nick Foles looks up and sees the isolated receiver is open, he throws it. There's no pressure, no problem. And that's Jason Kelsey, Wisniewski to an extent. They're great at getting out to the second level and closing off the pursuit, pushing everything the other way. And Lane Johnson, I think, is the best right tackle in the league.
Yeah.
And next time somebody talks to you about the Belichick and the Patriots cheating, ask them where Lane Johnson was for 10 games last season. Because that was the third time he got caught taking illegal performance-enhancing drugs.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this. I mean, it's for me. I mean, there might come a time where Tom Brady has retired and whatever else, and if anything's found out, it all comes back.
You'll be
to
dead before that.
Exactly. It all comes back to his personal trainer. You never know what will come out about that, do you? I'm sure there's a book in there somewhere. But I just want to talk to you about the road to the Super Bowl. Matt, for you, what was the most sort of singularly impressive performance from the Eagles and the Patriots during the regular season?
Well,
or
I think
even in the playoffs.
I don't want to be guilty of recency bias, but I think last week against the Jaguars, that was the matchup where I really fancied the Jaguars, because they matched up so well to what New England are so good at. And even the Jaguars managed to get that lead, so they could pin their ears back. We spoke about it in the last show, didn't we? About if the Jaguars would get a lead, that really suits their defense.
Yeah.
And even with that being so, they found a way to come back. And I think that kind of, to me, just says if they can overcome the Jaguars' defense in the form they've been in this season, then there's not really a match for that.
What the key moment I thought in that game was the last 55 seconds of the first half when the Jags took two knees.
Yeah.
It was like putting up a flag of truce in the middle of a battle.
To play the game.
You had time, 2 timeouts, 55 seconds. We saw the Eagles.
You never saw that
against
with the Eagles,
Minnesota.
That's right.
With a lead.
Never saw that with the Eagles.
Yeah.
It sets the tone, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What about you, Mike? What was the most sort of significant
I
game?
think it's hard to say, because the Patriots make every game seem like the other team's not anything special. And to me, it's 2 games. One is the Chiefs, for the second time in 3 years or 4, routed the Patriots.
That was the first game of the season.
First game of the season.
Yeah.
Everybody said, "Oh, New England's done." Chiefs have taken care of them. And I went back and looked at Andy Reid, trying to see if his record against Belichick indicated that this was a. It doesn't actually. He doesn't. Belichick's got a winning record against Andy, but having done it a couple of times recently, Doug Peterson is aware of the things they do to take advantage of what New England wants to do defensively.
Yeah, knowing and doing are two different
so I think
things,
that's an
aren't they?
important game. The most impressive one, though, had to be the win against the Steelers.
Yep.
Even though you can argue that the Steelers should have won the game, quite easily. And if the NFL had any idea of what was and wasn't a catch, the Steelers would have won. The Steelers would have won the game.
I think the Eagles game, the first post-Wentz game, because I think we're all guilty of thinking, here we go.
Against the Giants?
Against the Giants, they won 34-29.
Yeah.
And Foles went 237 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. I think we're all concerned, even though how well balanced they are, a team, and they don't rely on their quarterback. You're thinking this can all go the wrong way, but
it was the Giants, to be fair. But I know
it was
I take
the Giants,
the point.
but
It gave
still,
a lot of confidence
to put up 34 points when we really questioned it.
And what they rely on, you say they don't rely on their quarterback. What they did rely on with Carson Wentz, and what Foles did against Minnesota at least, was when they're in a third and longish situation, they're not afraid to take a shot downfield. In fact, they plan on it.
Yeah.
Because you may be concentrating on stopping the 8-yard pass or something like that, so they know they may have a good opportunity long. And Foles did exactly what Carson Wentz did. On the one play where he sidestepped in the pocket, he looked like Wentz. Guys were on him, but he just sidestepped, made a little bit of time for himself, and threw a really good long ball.
Well, Pedersen's very much the same when he's with the Chiefs. It was very much like, even if it was 3rd and 3 or 3rd and 1, if the deep pass is open, we're going to go for it.
And I mean, for me, from my point of view, Eagles were given an awful lot of confidence back in week 4. I mean, going back a long way, but they went to LA, the Chargers, place where they've never done particularly well before. In fact, I think they lost the last 5 before that.
That was San Diego, though.
Yeah, well,
They'd never been to
the
Dominion.
Chargers.
They'd never been to
still
Dominion
the
Hills.
Chargers. Football stadium, soccer stadium. But you get my point. It's a West Coast trip. They've lost the last 5 there. They win by a couple of points, 26-24. And I think that might have just given them a little bit of confidence. I think from New England's point of view, I go back to the rematch of last season's Super Bowl, and they dismantled Atlanta back in, what was it, week 7?
Yeah,
I think
that's a good call.
that was on the back of 2 road wins.
Yeah,
as
and
well,
everyone
so
was expecting Atlanta, a little bit of revenge, a little bit of we understand what happened, that kind of thing.
They had a grind in Tampa before that, and they dealt with the Jets after that. But their 2 road trips coming back home and to face the Falcons, that wasn't an easy task, and they dismantled them, really held them to 7 points. So that's for me. We've been through some of the key matchups, but we talk often about the 3 phases of football, offense, defense, special teams, but nobody talks about coaching as much as they should. Matt, for you, offensively, talk about who's got the edge, whether is it the Eagles or is it the Patriots?
Well, Mike touched on this earlier. You look at the player for player. Philadelphia have definitely got the edge. They have a more balanced attack. As I say, they've got guys all over the place that can make plays. We've got Aguilar, Kenyon Barner, obviously the duo Blunt and Ajayi. They've got far more in terms of personnel and options than the Patriots do. So they've got the edge there, I'd say. But the elephant in the room is on the other side. On the other side with Tom Brady. When you've got Tom Brady there, plus also you've got the ability of Danny Woodhead and obviously Gronk as well. I love Danny Amendola. Danny Amendola, yeah, wrong guy.
You're like Jeff Fisher. Jeff Fisher couldn't remember that.
Yeah, that's such an underrated weapon to have as well. But I do think that Philadelphia have a more balanced attack and don't ask the quarterback to do quite as much.
And the thing with Amendola is you can't game plan to shut down Danny Amendola because you've got Gronk and you've got Cooks that you have to worry about more, which is what Amendola feeds on. Because he knows exactly he knows exactly where he is and what he can do, and his game, 2 touchdown catches, the 20-yard pass to Dion Lewis, the block. He threw a couple of great blocks, but the one on the James White touchdown was just outstanding. The 20-yard punt return.
Exactly,
I mean, the 20-yard catch on 3rd and 18. What more do you want him to do?
Exactly. What about defensively though, Mike? Who's got the edge?
The Eagles. You have to think. I mean, and I think the imbalance talent-wise is even more so on defense. The Eagles have a great group of defensive linemen where it all starts. The linebacking core is, they lost their best linebacker to injury at the beginning of the season, but Badham's had a really good year. Their secondary is pretty strong, not as good as, say, Jacksonville's. But up front, with Cox and Jernigan, and they've got like 4 good edge rushers. Bo Allen in the middle. They rotate the guys through to try to keep them fresh. I would be amazed if New England didn't do a lot of no huddle. If they're in base, keep them there. If Bo Allen's on the field, keep him there. Get Jernigan. If Jernigan's off, keep him off. Make those guys get tired as much as you can. And I'd be shocked if they didn't do that more. And if you didn't see the Eagles trying all kinds of ways to slow things down so they can substitute. But I think the Patriots defense, man for man, it's like we were saying earlier. It's a bunch of guys they picked up. A bunch of what we used to call Jags. Just a guy.
Adam Butler from Vanderbilt. I mean, I remember scouting him and came away sort of nonplussed, really. And then seeing what they've got out of him at New England is fantastic. And that again goes to the level of coaching. But in terms of the running backs, you look at Blunt and Ajayi, and then you compare that to what the Patriots have. I mean, the Patriots have kind of a more well-rounded running back core that can actually, as you say, they can block well. They're comfortable in pass catching as well.
I'd say Ajayi needs a little bit of work in blitz pickup for a start. I mean, that's what I'm saying.
The New England guys, you can ask them to catch a good amount of passes as well to give you a bit more balance.
Yeah,
So-
and that's what they depend on. It'd be interesting to see who's active and who isn't, because Burkhead played against Jacksonville, but got hurt. I think got hurt again,
Yep.
and didn't play much. Gillislee hasn't been active
Sure.
for 6 weeks or so, although he's healthy.
Obviously
and
the-
he's kind of the more power back that they've got. But
the couple of slight injuries. I mean, Tom Brady's hand may have been an issue. Doesn't seem to be
somehow
now.
don't think-
Gronkowski in the concussion.
Bill had the
protocol.
greatest quote, I think, of the post game when they kept asking about the hand and asking about the hand, and he says, "The cut on his hand is not open heart surgery."
For me, I mean, the special teams. I look at that and I think the Patriots have had a kickoff differential better than any team in the league. I think the third actually in the league this year, so it's good enough. Whereas the Eagles sort of overall special teams was about 16th, I think, which is a surprise because they were sort of top last year. So yeah, it's they've got two left-footed punters, which is a rarity as well. Ryan Allen's very, very good. I mean,
It is a copycat. It is a copycat.
yeah,
league.
but two
Yeah.
left-footers are always best anyway. So I will say that because I was left-footed. But basically, I go back to the right.
It's the other one that goes in your mouth.
Yeah.
Thanks. And you're right too. Ryan Allen, basically, he's very, very good. Anywhere in the the 50-yard, 40-yard zone. I mean, he pinned Jacksonville very, very deep twice, and that could be key in what could be a defensive battle. I think that's going to be key to this, and I think the Patriots have a special. I think
They
you've
probably
got
have an advantage there. Yeah.
Goskowski kicking game. I mean, you think 37.
Elliot Goskowski's probably more or less a wash in terms of
You think so?
field goal kicking. Kickoffs, Goskowski's brilliant at kickoffs. People
37.
don't notice that.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, 37 or 40 field goals says it all for me this year. So that's quite an impressive figure. So, but
When I
he's
did
always
my
been good.
things, they were pretty much even.
I'm pretty impressed
All
with
right.
the. I'm pretty impressed with the New England.
Elliot's got a bit more range.
Okay, coaching,
Yeah.
coaching. Who has the edge? Is that a silly question?
Yes.
The Patriots, yes, have the edge coaching-wise.
Yep.
And it's not just coaching. It's, Ernie Adams sitting up in the stands and,
Yep.
and at halftime saying what they ought to do. But it's not like the Jacksonville game, where Jacksonville was just out-coached in the end with 3 or 4 decisions you can point to and say, why did you do that? Why didn't you do that? The Eagles are a well-coached team. Jim Schwartz, knows what he's doing as a defensive coordinator. There's no chance in the world Jim Schwartz takes his foot off the pedal if the Eagles have a lead. In fact, they become more dangerous if they have a lead defensively because he's going to come at you and knowing you're going to need to pass. And Peterson, as I said, I give lot of compliments to Peterson because he's the same way offensively. They will keep working at it until they find something that will beat you, and they're not afraid to take shots downfield. And I'm waiting for a game. Well, we saw it. Minnesota, they had the big lead. Everyone said, now they'll Ajay, Blunt. No, they just kept playing their game.
So that's the key for me as well. Is who's going to adjust best in a tight game during the game, and obviously we've seen that with the Patriots. Just the best at doing that in the game, changing how things are going, and exploiting any kind of weaknesses that arise.
Okay. Well, we're in the studios of Red Zone Sports, and of course Red Zone Sports are a bookmaker, redzonesports.bet. Have a look at some of the prop bets. We're going to take a little bit through some of the betting options because there are a myriad of bets on offer. Sort of props bets in the Super Bowl. Matt, what sort of props have you got? Special bets, as we call them. What would you be looking at?
See, mine is I think somebody going off bounds, out of bounds, and hitting a cameraman, and actually, and then showing the replay of the impact. That's going to happen.
You think that's
surely.
going to happen? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's
What others?
one or under. I'd say.
Okay. What others have you got? What tickles your fancy?
My other one was an errant pass hitting the sound guy in the radar.
Are these real bets? I'm
not
not
sure
sure
these
these
are
are real
long
bets.
I'm going to have a word with Red Zone.
Maybe they should be real bets. But
I worry a little
Like-
bit about the ability of certain people to affect the incidence of prop bets.
Okay.
For example, how many times will they say wardrobe malfunction
mean?
during halftime because Justin Timberlake's there? Well, if you were a very canny announcer, and you were in debt to bookies or something, you could easily,
Yeah.
say wardrobe malfunction more than you should.
This is
in
true.
order. I worry about. I'm the kind of person who
I'm
sits
the
there
sort
and
of guy that worries
stuff
about
like
in-game where personal fouls are going to be, because that could be
But,
also. We know who's going to get those, don't we?
You know,
In unnecessary
the coin
roughness.
toss is a great one because it's a 50-50. So just
And with these
see
guys,
if you feel lucky.
and with Red Zone Sports, it's actually an evens
Which is-
too,
that's-
which
that's
is
great
much
because it's
better
a
odds than
fair
anywhere else, which is
50-50.
great. Philadelphia. For
Now,
me,
I know about as much about Pink as Pink knows about me. But I think anything, and I think it'll go over 2 minutes. Put it that
What,
way.
the national anthem?
Yeah, I mean, I
Okay.
think she'll come in at around the 2:05 mark because I just think you get that natural tendency to stretch it out a little bit
Okay.
while you're on air.
Well, you certainly
Especially if
do
it's got money
anyway,
in it as well. Should be thinking.
Yeah, you see, well, look at me. You put a camera
Exactly.
in front of
Yeah,
me.
you'll stretch it out. I don't know if you can
can't- I
sing. What's your
can't
singing
shut up.
voice like?
Pardon me?
What's your singing voice like?
It's not bad. I could do a national anthem. It'd be interesting to back up.
At least you know the words
that
anyway,
that
wouldn't you?
get,
Would you
yeah.
stand up for it though? Anyway, that's another.
Well, that's an
So-
interesting one because if
2
if they
minutes.
offer about people kneeling, I don't think anyone will take a knee
No,
during the anthem.
I was going to say the
with
national
these two
anthem
teams.
is the odds to go over 2 minutes, which I actually think is a good bet. It's 10 to 17, so it's pretty much pretty much an odds-on shot. But I've picked out a couple. Philadelphia total field goals over 1.5. That's available
That's-
at 20 to 23.
Like
think
I
that's
said,
quite
they like letting Elliott kick from
Yeah.
beyond 50, where
I think that's
Belichick
a fair bet.
doesn't that often
He's
kick
more
from
conservative
beyond 50.
there, isn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, you're not going to like this one. Over 1.5 New England turnovers at 6 to 4. I think that's a massive price. I think there'll be a lot of pressure. I think they have the ability to collapse that pocket and keep Brady in the pocket. There may be one or two errant
That's
throws.
not-
I think
yeah.
6 to 4 is a fair price for that.
Surviving 2 turnovers is tough,
But
unless you force some.
I
That
don't
was the
think-
stat before the Jags game. If the Jaguars could
How many
force 2
Super
turnovers,
Bowls-
they'd win. But
how many Super Bowls has Tom Brady not committed a turnover?
None.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So there'll be at least one turnover in there, you'd think,
Yeah.
and maybe a running
And
back
someone
puts it on
else
the ground
could,
or
yeah.
whatever. So I
I
think,
mean, LeGarrette Blunt,
two
LeGarrette
turnovers
Blunt
is a good
fumbled
bet.
in the Super Bowl last year. He never carried the ball again for New England. Seriously.
I think
Yeah.
Dion Lewis as well to have more rushing yards than Jay Ajayi. I think that's a
Ooh,
really
that's-
good bet.
I
At
think
5 to
I'm going for
6.
that.
So I think that's
That's a good one.
I like that.
Because
One.
New England's going to be trying to stop the run. Ajayi's going to be sharing some carries with
Yep.
Blunt
With Blunt.
and Clement.
Yep.
That's
And-
and,
and
Lewis
to be
has been
fair-
Lewis has been their bell cow for the last half of the season.
And Jay Ajayi has never performed particularly well against New England. That's my other way of thinking on that. And bearing in mind the official, the referee, who is
Jeff Triplett, my favourite.
No.
no
No.
Seratori.
But they gave him a special game to
The man who did the measurement with the card is in charge.
Yeah.
Cleat
Will there be?
Blakeman, right?
No.
No, what's
is
his
it
name?
Serator?
Vince Sertor, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. He's not going to do that.
Will
they're
there
not going
be
to
a-
let him have a.
No, they're not going to let him have a card. No, it's only for referees. Will there be a measurement with the chains on the field? That's
Yes.
an interesting. I've gone yes, and
Is
that's
there an
evens.
over-under on
That's
that?
an evens bet.
Oh, just for yes and no?
Yes and no.
Oh, I'd go
Evens,
yes.
I think there'll be.
I'd go
I
yes
think there'll be a
too,
chain
yeah.
measurement. There always invariably is. I think
Yeah.
they've
Yeah.
got that one wrong. Will there be a personal foul for unnecessary roughness? Now we know which team that's going to be against, don't we? I think yes is.
I think there's going to.
21 to 20.
I
think
would
there will
not be
a foul.
surprised, given all of the hubbub that we heard about the Jacksonville ones. I would not be surprised if
Went the other way.
referees were very much let the
Let
guys
'em play, yeah.
in
Okay.
this one, which I hate, because I'm serious. The rule,
Yeah,
the rule
yeah.
in the National Football League is you can't contact a receiver beyond 5 yards.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Now the way the rule's interpreted is you can contact him as long as you're not gaining an advantage by it.
Right.
I say, if I'm running down the field with my arm, my hand on your arm, how am
Yeah.
I not gaining an advantage on it?
Yeah.
How is that neutral contact?
Okay.
And if they want to go back to the old rule, and you can bang the guy all the way down the field until the ball's in the air, that would
Yeah.
be fine with me. Go ahead, go back to it.
Okay.
But they don't want to do that.
All right.
But if you're not going to do that, you have to call the rule as it is. It's bizarre.
There's problems. Some of these corners in the NFL, then they get dinged because they're not looking back at the ball.
Right.
They've got some guys are very good at keeping their hands on the arms, but they're looking back.
Yeah.
And so the officials will kind of
Yeah,
give that.
because,
Well,
you know,
that's what they should be doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because contact in the old days was legal until the ball was in the air.
Yeah, that's
Now it's like football linesmen. How in
Yeah.
the world does the side judge watch the contact and see when the ball goes in the air at the same time? Because his
Yep.
two eyes can't go like this.
I mean, that's another thing with Philadelphia. You can't play soft on them on the receivers. You've got to jam them at the line.
You
of
have to,
scrimmage.
yes.
And
Yeah.
that's the
Good
big.
point.
That's a
yeah.
big key for
Because
me in this.
everything is over the middle.
Exactly.
They love
All right,
running
here's a
slants.
quick one for you. Philadelphia over 2.5 touchdowns or not?
2.5 touchdowns.
Over 2.5
what's
touchdowns.
0.5?
That's
Oh,
a half.
Yeah,
touchdown.
3
So
touchdowns.
3 touchdowns or
Yeah.
more. We have,
Because
there
I
it
get
is.
half a touchdown.
Half a touchdown. Pittsburgh going to get half
3
touchdowns.
touchdowns, 21. Yeah.
You like that?
Over 2.5, I
Over-
say yeah.
Yeah, 3.
Yeah, I'm looking at a one of these. The over/under on this game that I saw was 48.
It is. Yep.
And that stayed pretty much the same.
It has.
And I think that's a pretty fair over/under. I
Yep.
mean, that's
It's pretty
if
spot
it's
on, isn't it?
48, then you're talking about a sort of 27-21 game, something in that range.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've gone for Philadelphia to get 17 points, so no from me.
Okay.
If they get 17, they lose.
Yeah.
Is my guess.
Yeah.
Well, that over 2.5 touchdowns for Philadelphia is 13-10. The odds are, which is quite
That's
reasonable
pretty
odds
good.
against. We said about the coin toss, national anthem. So that's pretty much all our props. Unless there's anything else you want to get. Super Bowl predictions. How's it going to pan out? Who's going to win? Who have you got on the handicap?
New England 21, Philadelphia 17 in the tight game.
Mhm.
I don't see it being a particularly open game.
Okay.
Everybody's picked New England, and
Oh no, they haven't gone.
well, you're not
Wait till you
going
hear
to,
from
and I
Miami
know when I get in the studio, OC's not going to either.
Oh, good.
But I was looking at a thing, where all the punditry,
Yeah.
most of them picked New England. I don't see it being an automatic pick,
Right.
and I see a lot of New England, Seattle, New England, Jacksonville. This is a team that's going to give them problems defensively,
Yeah.
and I think a team that can score points. I think the Eagles with the points was a great bet when it first came out at 5.5.
5.5, now it's
down to 4.5. Yeah, 4. I still think it's a pretty good bet.
Right.
And I'm one of those guys who I'll probably wind up picking the Eagles, because if I pick the Eagles, I look really smart. And if I pick if the Patriots win, then I don't care.
I think you look
That's
very
okay.
smart anyway, really.
That's
So,
well,
it
I made
doesn't
an
matter.
effort this week.
Professorial. It's not an easy thing to say.
So yeah, so I mean, I'm leaning toward picking the Eagles here.
Okay. I'm going for the Eagles 34-13.
Whoa!
I'm going all out
All
with
in,
this.
yeah.
I'm going all in with this. I just think they match up really well in certain areas. It's a case of making sure you jam those receivers at the line of scrimmage, making sure you try and keep Gronkowski out of the game. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, it's
they'll
funny
have
because I
effective
woke
running the
up
ball.
one morning this week and with a vision of that Denver
It's unusual
Baltimore
for you,
game.
isn't it? It's
Yeah,
usually the afternoon.
where 40-year-old quarterback Peyton Manning was 39 in that
That's
game. Good defense, aggressive defense.
Yeah.
And they had no way of coping with it. But then I said, wake up. And Manning was 39, but he was a shell of himself.
Yes,
He wasn't
yeah.
Peyton Manning of a
Yeah.
few years. Brady's
Yeah.
still playing at a relatively
Yeah.
high
Yeah,
level,
he is.
and they're a better coach team.
He's had a couple of weeks of
not-
rest.
No knock on Gary Kubiak,
Mm.
but they're a team that has proven they can come back from big deficits if they have to.
Psychologically, what does that win do for them last year? Coming back from 31 points.
It's hard. I mean,
31 answer points.
I'm not a psychologist. It's hard, and
You
it's
look like
hard.
one.
It's hard to lie down. It's hard to. I think it's hard to try to attribute a psychology to a group. We do it all the time. We talk about momentum and stuff like that, but I'm not a real believer in that. I worried a little bit that the Patriots would be overconfident coming into this, but I don't think that's the case. I think they're very realistic about what they can and can't do, and what they have to do in order to be able to win.
They're
And
not
that's
gonna-
the thing.
It's not as if they're going down to Miami and having beaten them and then
Yeah.
tanking, basically, is it?
Yeah.
It's not going to be that way. They've
Some
learned their
teams
lesson
like
there.
the Steelers can go in and if their game plan isn't working or something, they can still win a game because Antonio Brown makes
Yeah.
a play, Le'Veon Bell makes a play,
Yeah.
Ben makes a play. With New England, it's more a case of their game plan has
Yeah.
to work or they have to adjust it
Yeah.
until it
This
works.
is how the Patriots have been every week, haven't they? They know their limitations, but they overcome them. And I don't think you see that from this Patriots team being cocky or overconfident going to this one.
How are you going to be watching the Super Bowl, Matthew?
At
Where
home.
will you be? At home?
With lots of coffee.
Excellent. Mike is going to be out in Minnesota. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah,
to
I don't
join
have
us
a television at home, so the BBC's going to let me be in the studio.
You're going to be. I'm going to be
and-
curled up at
and
home
do
with the
it.
cat, watching you and critiquing you, no doubt.
I'm
But,
sure.
no,
yeah,
no,
yeah,
I won't
but
be.
no, I'm
Certainly
looking
not.
forward to it because
Always a joy.
Chapo and OC and J Bell are great.
It's just going to be fabulous
and-
watching that.
And in,
I don't want to be
in
anywhere
all
else.
modesty, I'm just happy to add but I think our analysis and going back and forth has been really good the last couple of years.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
they've been great games as well.
Yeah, they have. And it
I'll
always
be
helps.
listening out for lots of repeat of the same thing. So I'll be listening for lots of mentions of
After
ungentlemanly
sports
conduct.
heads and
yeah.
Lindy's and 40-yard scouting and us, yeah, he'll mention all of that.
As I said, and,
You're not allowed to do that. Exactly. As I said on the sports head.
well, I got to use each second preciously. I can't waste time with long. Hurry up, hurry up.
It's an absolute pleasure to see you guys in the studio again. Thanks for taking the time, Mike. We know you've got to jet off to Minnesota, but stay with us because after the break we're going to be having a look at some of the end of season awards and plus some of the news items, and we'll also be looking ahead to next season. Stay with us. We'll see you in a minute.
Here at Red Zone, we have a soft spot for American sports, especially NFL. It's as American as cheerleading. Unfortunately, when it comes to betting on gridiron, there is very little choice between bookmakers. That's because almost all bookmakers get their odds from Las Vegas. And we all know what happens in Vegas should stay in Vegas, especially their nasty odds. So we're stripping back to basics, creating our own odds, giving you lucky punters the very best of British bookmaking for American sports. Would you like to see some more? RedZoneSports.bet, the British home of American sports.